When I was 13, I was very, very sick, and I was in the hospital for several months. And in that period of time, I had no visitors, except I had a Zenith transoceanic shortwave radio at the head of my bed. And I laid there every night and listened to the radio. That's all I did. That was my whole connection to the outside world. Well, that's 1957. And I'll never forget, for example, writing a request or a letter to a station at KGA in Spokane. I lived in Wenatchee, and I wrote this letter up to KGA, and I told this guy the story of my life. I said, I'm sick and I'm home, and I'd love to hear some music, and if any of your listeners would like to write to me, that would be wonderful. And I got hundreds of letters out of that guy's single reading of my letter. And I think the seeds of my interest in and love and value of radio were planted way back then. The owner of the radio station in Chelan heard me on the air, probably doing news, stopped by, introduced himself, and asked me to come to Chelan and talk to him. And I said, well, that would be fun. What do you have in mind? He said, I'd like to sell you my radio station. You've got to understand, a 24-year-old kid, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. We ended up inventing a talk show called The Second Cup of Coffee. We got this community talking like it had never talked before. We saw a lot of changes that took place in this town because of dialogue that took place on our Second Cup of Coffee. I gave all of my staff two-way radios in their cars, little handheld portables. I put two-way radios in the postmaster's car, the school buses. We had them in the sheriff's cars. So on a snowy day, we'd say, hey, it's a snowy day here in the valley. Let's go out to the school bus out on the South Shore, find out how the roads are and how are you doing on schedule. And he'd say, well, Steve, we're running about a half hour behind, but you can let the kids know we're on our way. So we were wired to this community in every way. And it was, you know, if you think of the word communications, we were great, great communicators. We are the eyes and ears of young Jerry Eisenharts who can't get out of their homes. When you say it's a nice day, some people don't see it. When you say it's going to snow tomorrow, some people are not in a place to even know.